how self-reliant am I in my capabilities? How confident am I in knowing the fact that I can make far more money than I did in corporate, relying on myself, working towards my own dreams, pushing my own vision, versus me pushing someone else's vision. Even if we failed, we were willing to live with that worst case scenario. And the only way to answer that question was for me to jump. Hello honeys, it's Yolz and welcome back to my channel. This face beat was certainly not done by me. Looking at myself and I'm like, who is this girl? This was done by Vamp Me by Dumi. I will actually link her handle over here. If you're in and around Joburg and you need your face to be done, she's the girl to contact. She also has her own makeup brand. So On My Eyes is actually her eyeshadow palette. She used her eyeshadow palette on my eyes and I absolutely love this look. It's definitely very bold. Can't stop looking at myself. Anyway, today I wanted to sit down with you and actually just chat about how it's been 3 years since the day I quit my job. I still cannot fathom the fact that I actually had the guts on a random Tuesday to just say, stuff it, I'm done, I resign, and within the next 30 days I want to be out of this place. I want to own my time, I want to do my own thing, and I don't think I am built for corporate. So I want to talk about that, and of course looking back now I do have a few regrets and I want to talk about that too, and life after the 9 to 5, how that's been, because I just realized I don't have an update really talking about the journey post that 9 to 5 quitting of a situation. Anyway, let's get straight into this video. If you do enjoy it, you know what to do. Give it a massive thumbs up, comment down below and let me know what's the bravest thing you've ever done in your life, and of course do not forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Hey there. It's Yolz channel. Here's the weird part. I don't actually recall the exact day I quit. It might have been the 20th or the week of like mid-March, but it was definitely in March of 2018 on a random Tuesday. If you don't know that story, I will link the I quit my 9 to 5 video up here somewhere. But basically on a Tuesday morning, I was sitting in front of my 2 screens at work. I was a senior analyst and really at a point where I sort of knew that this is the year I am quitting. This is the year I am letting go of trying to push somebody else's vision. Now, this is not to make any 9 to 5er feel as though that's not where they belong. We all have different purposes in life. We all have different paths in life. And for me personally, I definitely was not built for 9 to 5. I worked with certain people who were definitely built for 9 to 5. They would not survive as entrepreneurs because they really thrive on taking instructions and executing rather than actually initiating certain things by themselves. So after quitting my job a few weeks later, I posted that video and I did get a lot of people being really concerned about how I'm gonna survive. And the one thing I regret certainly was not talking about the preparation that took place before making that decision. Now, even though the day, that Tuesday, was not planned, I just had the feeling that day. It just overcame me and I knew I'm out. But prior that, like a few, maybe 6 to 8 months before that, I knew that 2018 was the year where I finally let go of the idea of being part of corporate South Africa, of being part of the corporate space in general. I just knew that this is the year I will let go of my 9 to 5 job, just because it's not giving me the satisfaction that I want. I wake up, I don't feel fulfilled. I wake up and I feel purposeless. I wake up knowing that this is not where I want to be. And when I do my job, I'm not as highly productive and motivated as I used to be, even when I was in a space and given projects where I felt like, okay, finally I can exercise my entrepreneurial ideas. So I didn't even feel like that anymore. So 8 months prior actually quitting, I'd already started saving. I've always been an avid saver, but I was more intentional about, y'all's, what happens if you make the decision next year. The other thing that I never mentioned was that the company that I was working for was already on like really rocky waters. Some teams were going through the most. We had people being retrenched, we had people going on voluntary retrenchment. There was a lot going on in the back end, okay? Even though it seemed very far-fetched for our team to go through that, I knew in reality we are in and in South Africa, anything can happen, especially in the corporate space. It's a volatile space, okay? We like it, we don't like it. Everyone needs some sort of security outside of the security of their 9-to-5 job. You like it, you don't like it, that's the reality. So I really saved up for that buffer of just in case anything happens. Your job is guaranteed, but only until your job is guaranteed. There comes a day where somebody sits you down and they're like, you don't have your job anymore because the business is shutting down. We've gone bankrupt. We're retrenching. So many different things can happen, and we are again living in a time where these things have become more of a reality, even prior COVID, you know. So started saving, started putting money away, and then we found out that we were pregnant while I was traveling for work. I was between Kenya and Tanzania when I was just not well. We were waiting for my period, and boom, I found out I'm pregnant. Now this is November of that year going into December, and I'm already thinking of leaving my job, but now I've got this like, how do you leave your job being pregnant? Again, nobody knew this as well. I never mentioned this in that video because I did not want to also say, by the way, I quit my job and I'm pregnant. So that was a real spanner in the woodworks. But I still thought more and more about leaving the space. And as the months progressed, January, February, and then March hit, I asked myself questions around, who do I want to be as a mom? Do I want my child to grow up in a household where I've held back so much of my needs or my wants and my dreams, the things I feel I personally needed, which was fulfillment, for the sake of creating a better life for him in a safer and secure space? If I stay in corporate, it seems like the right thing to do. Do I rob him of the life I want to give him one day if I just quit my job today? And the answer to that was no. I don't rob him. To be quite honest with you, the first 3 years of my life, I don't remember. So how would he? And then I asked myself, well, what happens if this doesn't work out? The worst that could happen is me crawling back to my old employer and asking for my job. Do I lose anything there? No, bit of pride, you know, just a little bit. And it humbles you, okay. And then what? Then I asked myself the other thing, what do I really have to lose? Is it a life and death situation? Yeah, I have a bond. Ne? I have a mortgage bond, so the bank is looking at me. If I can't afford my bond, what happens to the house that my mom is living in, you know? I asked that question and then I decided, well, if that's the only question that's hanging, if ever we lose the house, we've been in a place where we've had no home, where we've lived in a shack. Going back there doesn't seem like such a bad idea when you've been there before, because that's your zero, right? That's your ground zero. And if you've been poor before and you've been wealthy before, you know what it is and you know what it looks like on both sides. You then have at least a better picture of how to then choose to go back and work towards being wealthy again if you've been there before, rather than falling back. And if you do fall back, at least you know how hard it is on the ground than not knowing. So then I was like, if that's the worst that could happen, I was 26 at the time, I think it's actually not that bad. No one's gonna die, right? No, this child is gonna survive whether we live in a shack or not, whether I lose the house my husband and I live in. And then the question of, how self-reliant am I in my capabilities? How confident am I in knowing the fact that I can make far more money than I did in corporate, relying on myself, working towards my own dreams, pushing my own vision, versus me pushing someone else's vision? That was a challenge, and that was the only question I needed to answer. And the only way to answer that question was for me to jump. So that is how I did it. And I truly, truly regret not mentioning all these things and all these different thought processes. I think to a large extent I didn't want to confuse you guys because it's a lot, as you could hear. It's a real mouthful. And that's really the only thing that I do regret not mentioning in that video. The fact that, yes, the physical preparation has to happen, but the mental preparation, it's a war, but it's one that you can win by simply asking yourself, what is the worst that could happen, and can you live with that worst? If you can live with that worst, absolutely do it. If you absolutely cannot live with the worst scenario you can think of, don't do it. I don't fear the worst. If I can see it in my head and I know that it's actually not that bad, then I live. Somebody used to actually say in my old workplace, well, even if you did go bankrupt, what then? Will you be begging on the streets? No. Is your family okay, in a state where they could at least help you out? Yes. So what is the worst that could happen? And is the worst really the worst? No. So essentially, after that Tuesday, I did it. I jumped with the fear, of course, of how we're gonna really survive this. I'm a risk taker by nature. Also something I do regret not mentioning, because not everyone has to be this brave. Not everyone has to take as wider and larger risks as other people. We build differently, you know. And my husband just said, put a strategy down. Know what you'll be doing every single day when you wake up and don't have to get in your car and drive to work. Make sure that you know your next steps. It may not work out the way you plan it, but it will certainly give you some sort of structure to work around. And then of course, your network is your net worth. The one thing I also did was make sure that I'm contacting every single brand that I've absolutely loved working with, that I truly enjoyed a good relationship with. I reached out to them and I was like, hey, let's work on this and that. I'm going full time now and I want us to work for the next 3 months on this and that project. Now this doesn't mean that everyone said yes. Nope. Some people were flat nosed. Some were, we are midway through a campaign and we can't really add anyone else. Maybe next time. So you write that down. You make sure you remember for next time now, that next time you are top of mind. So I did that. And then there were other yeses which were like, oh great timing, love the idea, let's execute, you know. And that's basically how I ended up not really relying on the savings that I had, but rather adding on them so that we can not just survive but thrive through creating better content and growing as a Yolz channel business. So essentially that's what the life after the 9 to 5 has really looked like. Me now living a life where I look beyond the fact that I was once in corporate, but rather the skill set that I have learned in corporate, how can I incorporate it into the Yolz channel business and build this business to a massive beast of a business, okay, and hire as many people that I can, and now become the corporate that I used to work for, with people who are skilled and love and thrive in the corporate space, utilize those skill sets and make money off of that, more money and more money and more money. And to a large extent, now I look back and I'm like, I'm glad that Fez has this mom, and I'm glad that Fez won't remember this, but he'll know my story. Thank goodness, yes, we did not struggle, but he won't know the life of his mom and dad waking up and going to a 9 to 5 because they had to. We chose not to do that, you know. We dreamt it and we did it the way we wanted to do it, and we wanted to give ourselves a choice. And even if we failed, we were willing to live with that worst case scenario. That really sums up the life and the decisions that were made prior quitting. I'm not going to say that the journey has been uber amazing. There's been challenges in between, which of course I do touch on my Boss Babe Tuesdays. They've kind of died out now this time of the year because we're working on other projects, but they will definitely be coming back. And on my vlogs, I do have some nuggets where I share specifically around business and how I run my business, building small businesses to becoming big businesses, which is the bigger picture for me. Y'all's channel wasn't just about sitting in front of the camera and doing YouTube forever. It was really about building a robust enough business that's going to build the legacy I want for my children, the legacy that I want to build for my future grandchildren. This is the road that I want to take. It may not be easy, it's not for everyone, but it's one that I was willing to take and risk everything for, okay? So I really want to end that video here. I want to open up the comment section for your questions, so ask away, and I really hope that you did enjoy this video. I am super excited to be more open on this journey and less vague. I don't want people filling in the gaps. I want to be the one being very clear on what happened, how it happened, and how things are going right now. So definitely ask away. If you do love where this conversation is going, of course, definitely subscribe and join the Yolz channel family. I love you guys so much. Mwah. Hope you enjoyed. Bye.